Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. You're in the know with Esther and Larry. Art on the air today. Stay in the know with Larry and Esther. Art on the air our way. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art.
And welcome. You're listening to Art on the Air on WVLP 103.1 FM and on Lakeshore Public Radio 89.1 FM. This is our weekly program covering arts and arts events in Valparaiso and throughout Northwest Indiana. I'm Larry Brechner of New Perspectives Photography, right alongside here with Ester Golden of The Nest in Michigan City.
Aloha, everyone.
We're your hosts for Art on the Air. Our theme music you heard is by Billy Foster with a vocal by Renee Foster. Underwriters for Art on the Air are Valparaiso University's Brower Museum, regional art patron Mary Levan, and our landlord, Walt Breidinger of Paragon Investments. If you'd like to find out more about leasing space in this historic building, please give Walt a call, 219-462-5821. I'd like to thank them for their generous support. Thanks to Greg Kovach, WVLP's station manager. Art in the Air is supported by an Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project grant through South Shore Arts and is part of the National Endowment for the Arts. If you're interested in being a guest or sending us information about your arts-related event or exhibit, please email us at artontheair.wvlp@gmail.com. That's artontheair.wvlp@gmail.com. Our program, along with all of our programs, are streaming live at wvlp.org. Art on the Air is rebroadcast on Monday at 5 p.m. Our entire show archive can be heard at our website, brech.com/AOTA. That's Brech, BRECH.com/AOTA. You'll also find our detailed arts calendar at brech.com/AOTA. Our shows are carried by Lakeshore Public Radio, 89.1 FM every Sunday at 7 p.m., and you can hear them at lakeshorepublicradio.org. And now we have Georgia Fox Hatfield from the Fox Gallery in Lake Station. She's an artist herself. She does art, poetry, photography, calls her Fox Gallery an oasis in Northwest Indiana. Welcome to Art on the Air.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to talk to you, especially with all this coronavirus pandemic going on. It's been definitely a surreal time, I think, for everyone.
How's that impacting what you're doing at the Fox Gallery? I know you have different evenings where you have open mic and things like that, which obviously you can't have.
Yes, we had art classes, yoga classes, and open mic. And, also folks could come in at off hours and shop or could rent the space out for their own events or meetings or parties or so on. Basically, everything is completely stopped. And Fox Gallery's been in existence for 5 years. And in those 5 years, we've never been closed more than maybe 1 or 2 Fridays in an entire year. So to go from all the time working, always having activities and events happening and community-based activities to a complete standstill is definitely surreal, but it's completely understandable given the nature of what we're all up against and facing right now. What this has done right now, Fox Gallery had 2 shows that we were curating for the artists within Fox Gallery that were going to be the month of May at the Griffith Library and the month of June at the Hobart Library. I had just come off of a show at the Hammond Library as well, and that occurred, but because it was in January, but this is January into February, but this is now basically kind of shut down all that activity. And at this point, we don't know yet if it's going to be pushed back to later dates or if they're going to be canceled completely, because at this point, most institutions are shut down, so people don't have the ability to see this. So,
are you doing any virtual events?
And I've had some people say, hey, do an open mic virtually, but look, I've done a little bit with the Zoom meetings and some of the Messenger video chats, and we've had virtual band practice and things like that, but to do something like that, I don't think that it completely translates if you have several people playing in a band trying to perform a song on a Zoom meeting. I don't know that would... It's different when you're doing a meeting as opposed to performing live music. Now, could we read poetry and do that? Absolutely. I've done some video chats. I've done things that we're calling signs of hope, where I've made signs that are all within the gallery for supporting first responders, nurses and doctors, essential workers, and just the community in general to be encouraging. We also go out on sunny days and we'll put signs of hope, like loving messages like that, all along the sidewalks in front of the business. We've made one or two signs for other folks as well for them to put in their home, but it's been that's a limited thing that we're doing. I mean, I truly wish that we could do more. I'm not a restaurant, so I don't have the ability to make food and bring it to first responders and so on. And then also being put in a position where all my income came from everything that I was doing to now I'm an incredibly limited resource. It makes it difficult, so I'm trying to find creative alternatives. We're doing what we can at this point, but, I don't want public safety to be impacted, so, we can't work and function as we had. So I've gone on my social media pages and I do weekly funnies, if you will, anything that we can. Earlier in the pandemic, we posted a lot of helpful information that the public can use to boost immune system and, what foods are healthy and what foods would boost your respiratory system and your immune system. We've done that, but it still feels like it's not enough, and it's kind of a bummer for me personally because I would definitely like to be a lot more hands-on. I'm at a loss. I don't know by myself what to do in the face of all of it. So
I think you've done a lot there, it sounds like, and we're going to wrap that up here, Georgia. That's Georgia Fox Hatfield from Fox Gallery. That's at 2901 DeKalb Street in Lake Station, Indiana, and you can find her on Facebook. Thank you for being on Art on the Air, Georgia.
And thank you so much for everything that you're doing. It's a blessing to the community. We appreciate it so much.
And make sure to like us on our Facebook page, Art on the Air, WVLP. Art on the Air is always looking for financial support. We'd like to thank our current supporters. If you're looking to support Art on the Air and, of course, the WVLP station, we'd be happy to become part of the WVLP family anytime. Esther and I especially would invite you to become an underwriter of this program in particular. We have information on our website at brech.com/AOTA. You can find out support information there, or at wvlp.org/support. We have underwriter levels at various levels. You can support us. We'll mention you during our show and throughout the WVLP broadcast day. We encourage you to become part of a supporter because we are supported by our listeners. So don't just be a WVLP and Art on the Air listener. Become a supporter or underwriter in whatever amount you're able to do so we continue to bring you this great content and this great local programming. And like I say every week, don't give till it hurts. Give till it feels good. And you'll feel so good about supporting Art on the Air and the whole WVLP family. Join the WVLP family today. Art on the Air, and our guest today is Stan Klein. Also, his alter ego, which we'll talk about later, is Vito DeSalvo as an artist. He has his own gallery in Chicago called Firecat Projects, which we'll talk about later. And we'll also talk about a very special exhibit. But first of all, we want to have Stan talk about himself. So welcome to Art on the Air, Stan.
Aloha.
Hi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, tell me a little bit about your background, Stan, where you grew up, how you got from where you were to where you are now.
I grew up in East Cleveland, Ohio, and my father was a school teacher, and my mother worked for the Cleveland Playhouse for 30 years. And so I had a little bit of a theater immersion through her, and my dad was a really hard-working history teacher. And I ventured into art, and went to Cleveland Heights High School, and then on to Carnegie Mellon. And that choice of Carnegie Mellon was really through a very kind and wise art high school teacher who my father wasn't going to pay for me to go into art unless I was an art teacher and went to a state university. And the Vietnam War was going on, and my options were going into the Army or going to a state university. And my art teacher said, you're pretty good. Why don't you just try for some big deal schools and maybe they'll give you money to go there. And I got into Rhode Island School of Design and Carnegie Mellon, and they paid for everything.
That's
and
so
my
fantastic.
dad was shocked. He was shocked. And so I went there, and it was great because it was a university. And my roommate was a theater major and actor. And so I got immersion into all the arts and music and a really good jazz musicians there. And it was really a launch. And that's also where Vito DeSalvo started, because I was there on a full scholarship, and these were intimidating people, and I didn't want to be just little Stan Klein from Cleveland Heights, Ohio. So I thought I'd be Vito DeSalvo. It sounded a little like you're not going to push me around.
Well, it sounds also very international.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you don't have to tell me about art.
Vito DeSalvo. Bon vivant.
So that's where the music started. And then via Indianapolis, I learned the picture framing trade after school. And I learned leafing and carving and just all of that sort of part of it. And after like 3 years, I moved to Chicago and opened my own shop and had that for 20 years, 22 years exactly. And
well, one of the questions I had is you also were in Maine for a while, weren't you?
that comes later.
Oh, okay.
In Chicago, I did a lot of framing for institutions and collectors and dealers. I had a lot of friends that did artwork as well. And so I got to see the whole different supply chain of art, you know, and understand all the ramifications and their needs and their wants, and got to know which ones to trust and which ones maybe not to trust. And then my daughter became sick, and we had a decision to go what to do with school, and decided to move to Maine because my in-laws were getting elderly. So it was like she could go to school there, we could take care of the in-laws. So I sold the shop and moved to Maine, and everyone thought I was living with Ester. And it turned out that I tell people I fell upstairs, and all the opportunities that I ever wanted to try, I did. So I was like a fireman, I was head of the library, I taught school, I did a lot of stuff, but I also worked for the museum as a preparator. The museum was the Farnsworth, and they could only afford one person. That was me. So I had to do everything.
It's a good education, isn't it?
Yeah, I had to build the pedestals, I had to paint the walls, I had to pack the painting, reframe stuff, it was everything. And it was, it's okay. I got to meet a lot of artists because I worked with them installing our shows the way they wanted. And there were, Alex Cass and all sorts of different people would come in, and it was an experience. And through that, I got to know the Wyatts, and they hired me to do work for them on the side. So I did a lot of work for Andy and Jamie Wyatt, and got to know Betsy Wyatt really well, who just passed away. And then I installed a Ken Nolan show in 2004, and it was just me and him for a week, and we hit it off. And by day 3, he was turning down invites to eat with the director to go sit in my office and eat lunch with me and listen to jazz. So it was like, and so about 4 months after the show, he called me up and he said, what would it take for you to work for me? And I never had that kind of invite before. And I went there, and it was going to be just him and me. And he said, how much do you want? Again, another question I never got before. And so I ended up working for him for about 5.5 years. And his
work is really amazing. That must have been, boy, Stan, you've had a charmed life.
Well, yeah, as I said, I fell upstairs.
Yeah.
And was at that point in his life where he was quite willing to share his insights, thoughts, past history. We would wait for a delivery in the office. I'd pull out a Christie's or a Sotheby's catalog, just start flipping through it, and I'd go, what was this guy like? And he'd start telling me all about it. And then I did my research, too. And so I knew things that he was surprised that I knew, and then he would tell me the full story. One of the best of that was, there's a big de Kooning biography, and I read that because I was concerned about being an assistant to somebody who was having health problems.
You're listening to Art on the Air, WVLP 103.1 FM, and on Lakeshore Public Radio 89.1 FM.
And in it, Clement Greenberg gets into a fight with de Kooning, and they say they get into a fight, and they're in a bar, and Ken Nolan pulls Clement Greenberg off. And I'm like going, Ken, what's the story here? He goes, they wrote that? I said, yeah, they wrote that. He goes, yeah, it was a fake fight. They were drunk. They were just going, oh, let me have a, oh, yeah. And they were just kidding around. It was like, so it's great to have that personal insight, first person. And
it's really, gosh, it's really priceless. It's like living in a history book.
Yeah, and then my daughter by then was in high school, and she wanted to go into art history more. And they didn't have art history in rural Maine high school. So he said, well, let's go out to dinner twice a week, and we'll talk. And so she would come, and he would talk to her about different people and stuff, and she would ask questions. And he would ask, like, what are you reading? And one day she said, I'm reading Death of a Salesman. And he goes, well, when I left my second wife, I moved to the Chelsea Hotel with the sculptor David Smith. And my neighbor was Arthur Miller. And then he started going into Arthur Miller stories.
Wow.
And it's just like, the thing for my daughter was, these people weren't just in books. They were real people who had their real problems. And after 3 or 4 years, she knew all of Ken's ups and downs and issues. And so she realized, yeah, you're in an art book, but you're a person. And it was great for her. And it was great for me, too. But it just made art about people and vision and expression. And you really got a sense from him how that expression realized itself, and tried to make that.
So, Stan, during that time, were you creating artwork at the time, or when did that start occurring for you personally?
Before I started working for him, I was doing some drawing, mostly as donations for things and stuff like that. But once I started working for him, it was every day from like, I'd have to get there at like 8:39 in the morning, and it was till he decided, why don't you just go home? And I was devoted to learning as much about him and what his thinking was. And so I'd go home and I'd be reading books, anything that had anything about him related. And I remember reading a book by a man named Gene Lee, and he started Down magazine. And he started doing little books about profiles of musicians. And one of them was Antonio Carlos Jobim. And it was about his first visit to New York. And he came to an artist studio with Armin Erdögen's brother, nephew. And in the studio, he sees Bill Evans. Gil Evans. And he gets on his hands and knees and crawls over to Gil Evans and starts bowing. And I'm sitting there going, okay, Ken was friends with both Erdögen. He sponsored a lot of Gil Evans records. It's got to be him. He's not named in the story. So I turned to Ken one morning and I go, can you tell me about this? And he goes, what'd they say? And I tell him. And he goes, yeah, that was me. And he started to go into the full story. And it was just, he was so happy that somebody brought it up. And it was just that kind of, and then, Ahmet Erdögen did come and visit twice. And I had dinner with Ahmet Erdögen twice. He started Atlantic Records. And, he brought the Rolling Stones, the America, he did Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles. And so I'm sitting there with him, and at one point I said to him, all that's great, but you're really famous because you own the New York Cosmos. And in the 70s, the soccer team, and you brought Pele to the United States. And he went, yeah, I did. Like, well, you changed America right there.
Hey, Stan, I would have a question about you going back to Chicago, and you were involved with Steppenwolf Theaters, Steppenwolf, and you apparently wrote 4 plays. So tell us about that, your theatrical adventures there.
Well, as I said, my mom was in theater. I've been around it a lot. And then my roommate was an actor, and I took 2 years of modern dramatic literature with a man named Leon Katz, who you should look up. He's really great. Anyhow, I came back to Chicago, and Tony was a really good friend, and I had done his framing since the early 80s. And he said, why don't you come work with me? And so we would work. I would do a lot of his business stuff, help set up his shows, and do the business aspect. And at some point, he was approached about doing a play, and he didn't want to do one of those one-person sit-around. So it's like we decided to do an inner dialogue between the two of us. And we're both actors and storytellers, and so it worked. And it ended up being sort of this continuing 4-play story. And at first, we were like, well, Tony can be on stage because he's an actor. I've never been on stage myself. And they said, and they were thinking about having somebody play me, and then they went, nah. And so it was fine. I got you. I was just talking to Tony. It's easy. And so it sort of evolved. The only problem was the director that we had for all 4 liked to have these little musical interludes. And at first, it was going to be Tony dancing and me kind of in the background. Well, by the end, the 4th play, I'm dancing by myself on stage. And that was the end for me. I'm done.
How amazing. Did you have the dog with you? Did the dog make an appearance?
I wish she had. She would come to rehearsal. She was great. And she would just sit on stage and look at the two of us back and forth. She was a very opinionated dog.
So when did the gallery first form in your mind that you would take all these experiences and turn it into Firecat?
That's kind of where it became a culmination. I took all the stuff from picture framing business and all the other stuff. Even I was head of the synagogue for 6 years in Maine. All that kind of dealing with people and all that, and then all the art background. And frankly, it was a lot of Ken. It was Ken, talking about how you interrelate with viewers and how galleries should be set up. And he had written a 12-page paper on how people view art on walls.
Yeah, it's really. They think hanging a show is easy, but it takes a lot of thought.
It's a lot of thought. There's a lot of story and interconnection and interaction. And so I think, and then the business part was I had to drive. Tony doesn't drive. And we had a show in L.A., and we decided to drive there. Well, we decided to drive there, which meant I drove there and back. And so I drove all the way to L.A. in 3 days with Tony next to me. And 3 days back with Tony next to me. And you get a lot of time there. And we decided he was getting tired of being in the studio. Everyone was coming in and talking to him. He needed privacy. So I said, well, let's not give up the space. Let's make it into a gallery. And then it got into the whole, how does it become this gallery? And both of us decided that it should be a gallery that doesn't take commissions. And really almost like a teaching gallery in which people get to experience a show, but they also have to own it. Not just turn to the gallery dealer and say, you do it. And so they have to go through the process of what are they going to do with this space, help promote it, what's your idea, have input and ownership of it. And so it's been a great thing because people really get a full idea of what it is to have an exhibition, so that they just don't hand it off to somebody. You take care of it.
So are they doing the hanging?
They're doing everything. I'm doing the hanging. We're working together and arranging it how they want it, and we're discussing it all. I had one person that came and they brought like 55 paintings. I'm like going, this is way too much. But I didn't say anything right away. I started hanging it with her, and we hung it all. And I looked at her and I said, you might want to pare it down. It seems a little overwhelming. You don't really concentrate on any one painting because there's so many of them. Mm-hmm. And she went home and she thought about it, and she eliminated 6. I said, are you sure? And she goes, yeah, I'm really happy with this. I went, okay. And like 2 years later, I hear from her like, I should have cut it down. I knew it right then. I was scared not to. And so it's always an evolving learning process, which
it is.
They need to have that experience so that when it comes again, they know what the guidelines they want to follow.
Stan, I was going to ask you, you have some other non-artistic stuff you do at Wrigley Field and Symphony Hall. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, my mom and dad passed away about 12 years ago, but she suffered from Alzheimer's, and that was really hard on me. And so I already had the Vito DeSalvo personality, and I thought, I need to get out and have a job where I interact with people more. So I work at Wrigley and at Symphony Hall. I'm a doorman at Symphony Hall, and I'm an usher at Wrigley. But I use the name Leo. I'm Leo Klein now. And so it's a shorter Rolodex. When people come up to me and they go, Rio, I kind of know where I know him from. And that kind of cuts down the name search in my brain. Who are you? Oh, yeah. Now I know. And so if they call me Vito, I know where I know them from. If they call me Stan, it makes it easier. But it's just a great way to meet really, really interesting people. And at Wrigley, I showed at the gallery a woman named Marianne Simmons. And she has a printmaking concern in St. Louis. And I liked her. We hit it off. And she shows up with her stuff. We install it. Her husband turns out to be Ted Simmons, who's about to be inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame. So I started talking with Ted at Wrigley Field before the game about art. Because he was on the board of the Milwaukee Art Museum when he was a player. And so we're talking about Bruce Conner one day for a half hour, and people around us thought he was a ball player. No, he's an artist in San Francisco. It's a great way to have wonderful offhanded conversations, and you really learn about people, and that's a really great thing.
Ken, you've had a whole lifetime of being in the right place at the right time.
I've fallen into the right slot so far.
So where are you right now? Like, what practice makes you feel wonderful? Like, how much time do you devote to your art? What do you see? How do you see now with all of the changes in the world? How do you see the gallery evolving?
Right
that was a
now,
lot of questions. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of drawing. I had a couple of shows a year and a half ago. I had a big New York show, and it's been fun. And I'm sort of coming up with a different concept for my drawings, and they're going really well. I should have another show in upstate New York next summer.
I want to do a Stan Klein Vito DeSalvo retrospective as well, so we'll have to...
You're listening to Art on the Air, WVLP 103.1 FM, and on Lakeshore Public Radio 89.1 FM.
what I'm doing now is fake records.
I know
So I
that's
make
so
the
good.
album, the front and the back, and it's got a theme or something about it. And I make up all the song titles on the back. It's a lot of fun. And then I stick a record in it, and I put the old plastic on it, and I put like little sales stickers on it or clearance. And to exhibit it, all I have to do is make like 3 wall-mounted record bins. And that's my show.
Stan, I
I'm
noticed...
thinking at the end of it, putting some of them in used record store just to see what happens.
Oh my gosh, that's performance art right there.
Stan, I saw some of your other artwork, and I don't know, I'll let you describe it, but I noticed that a lot of the portraits or faces you have also had words on the faces. So tell us a little bit about that, and how would you describe your artwork besides the record album?
Well, and this is where it ties in with Jon Gnagy. I could go into that a little bit more too. I was never comfortable with painting, and so I always stuck with crayon and color pencil. And the last series I did for like 3 years was called People in the Know, and it was all about, and it had a lot to do with my jobs and what I was doing. People had no gumption of how to say no. And they would go, I'd ask them some question at work, and they'd go, well, I'm not sure, let me get back to you. Just tell me no, And so that's what it became, was how people avoid saying no. And it was a lot of fun. And I enjoyed drawing faces, so it was easy work. And it's part of the color pencil, I think, makes it more accessible for me to people. It's not like, oh, that's a painting. No, it's just a drawing. It's just colored pencil. It's not like it's some high art. And so that's why I like that medium a lot. And then it goes with my material.
It's also very easy to take with you.
Oh, yeah. There's no big, huge. I did one piece that was like, I've done some big pieces that I had a commission from McDonald's. I did 3 large pieces for McDonald's. They were like 4 by 6. That was a lot of drawing. And I was thinking about it going, the bigger my pieces go, the less immediate they are. And then I also want to fill up with lots of little things. And I'd rather stay more direct than some of the smaller size work.
I keep thinking that's a lot of sharpening of pencils.
That's a lot of pencils. And I do a lot of layers of color. And that's part of my discussion with Ken even too. Because he was talking about my work. And I said, I usually, each color that I draw has 3 or 4 colors in it.
Yeah,
and I always think of it as musical chords. Each color's a musical chord in jazz. And he's like going, stay with that thought, stay with that thought. And if you get a chance to see a lot of Ken's work, in computers, he hated it because it's all flat and the same. But he used a lot of different textures on unprimed canvas. So some are really translucent and thin. Others we've added medium, and they're thick and crusty. And so it's a textural visual thing that also, besides the color and size, and that's really what he was trying for. And it really affected me in my thinking of how I should think of color and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's really priceless when you have someone as accomplished as Ken to kind of form or give input into what you're doing. It's really I
did a bachelor's and master's degree with them, 5.5 years, yeah. So when he was starting, we did the last set of paintings that he did together. It was just him and me, It took about 13 months. And before he started, he was starting to lose his eyesight. He had macular degeneration. And so we would go to restaurants, and he would quiz me. And we would sit and look at things around us, and he'd go, what color red is that? And he goes, does it have more blue in it or yellow? And we would talk about it so that we would have a common language about color.
Yeah.
So he would go, make it this color, and I would know what he was talking about.
Wow, Stan.
Well, Stan, I was going to ask you, and we're going to move on to you're having an exhibit at the Firecat Projects in Chicago coming up, and that's probably something that's very interesting, and probably some people may recognize it. And, in researching the show, I think Jon Gnagy, I realized that I think my father, who did some drawing on the side, has a couple of his books. So tell us a little about your upcoming exhibit that's going to open May 22nd.
It's really a great experience for me to go through putting this show together. And as a child, I had watched Jon Gnagy probably in the early 60s, and I couldn't keep up with him. But he took me from mindlessly scribbling with crayons and all that stuff, to actually sitting going, oh, I can draw that? And he had such a kind, open manner about him. And the only way I can compare it to is Mr. Rogers. He had that same warmth and inviting spirit.
And a very pleasant voice,
Oh, yeah.
I've been watching his old shows and drawing with him, and I'm having the best time. I can
try and imagine being 8 and keeping up with that. He'd go, take your number 3 pencil, and I'd be like looking through the pile. Where is it? And he was the first person on TV in 1946 to show how to draw. And he sort of fell into it as well. He had been a commercial artist, and he had come from a farm in Kansas without electricity, a Mennonite farm, and made his way to New York and was working as a graphic artist. And somehow NBC picked him as part of this milieu of, let's travel around and learn about flower arranging. Let's learn about this. It was early TV. They didn't know what to put on. And he was the guy that would show you in 20 minutes how to make a drawing. And they realized, let's put this on TV, on real TV, on nighttime, primetime TV. So they only had 4 shows at night, and this was one of them. And he was on for 3 years every night. And he was great. And the smart thing that he did, that his daughter told me, was he would say, just pay me nominally. And he started doing drawing books and kits. And he would do the show, and he said, pay me nominally, I own the rights for the show. And it was like the first infomercial. And that show went on to go on because TV stations around the country started opening up after 1949, and they needed filler. And so he was on TV till the late 60s, the same 3 years of shows. And he's selling all the products still. And so it was
very smart.
There's a painting in the show that is all documented, and his granddaughter found the congressional record. And it's a painting of flowers, and his daughter didn't think he did it, but, there were a lot of artists around where she grew up. But he had done it, and he had been hired by RCA to come to Washington and go in a congressional office building and do a painting on closed TV broadcast to a meeting of the FCC. And he did a painting for an hour while they talked, and it was to get color TV approved. And it's just an amazing thing, that he was able to do that. And he's just at that right place at the right time for all this stuff. And the problem was they wanted him to do painting on TV. And he was meticulous. And every painting was a long time happening. And so he couldn't do it. And so after 49, he started just doing private teaching and he'd do different seminars and places and stuff like that. And he ended up out west. And the other odd thing about it was his wife was a very gifted artist, very good at figure drawing. She had a lot of training in that. And all the figures in all his drawings and paintings, she did. Because he wasn't allowed as a child to draw figures in the Mennonite world. And so it just was this great match of people. So I have his sketchbooks and I have her sketchbooks as well. And it's just all the drawings of New York in the 40s, and then we're out west in the desert, and then we're up in... He did a fishing guide. He was hired to do a fishing guide, and he did silver point drawings of like 120 fish.
They're
and they're
so
just
beautiful.
Amazing.
So beautiful.
And
the breadth of his work is astounding, actually, and the different styles.
And his love of what he was doing comes through the work.
Yeah,
there's a simple joy.
You can definitely follow his passions by the work. There's so many different styles, but you can tell the ones that he's deeply connected with.
What I'm amazed about Stan is that his drawing kits, there's 3 of them that are available. And it's absolutely, as firm in the
daughter's 91. She doesn't want carted around anymore.
Right. They have 3 drawing kits, and you can get them on Amazon, and they're not that expensive, like $24 to $30. One's drawing, one's painting, and there's a combo kit, a master kit they call it.
And so I had lunch with his daughter and a friend of mine from childhood who also did all this stuff. He's an artist in New York, has been showing there in New York for a long time, and so he's with me. We're having tuna sandwiches with her. She's talking, and I'm asking questions, and we're having a great time. And at one point, I'm asking her about the drawings on TV, and I said he did them so fast, and she goes, well, he has little lines on the paper. And Steve, my friend, goes, he's chest falling, and he goes, he cheated? So it was just one of those great, and his daughter's a hoot. She's just so funny and so wise about it all. And so they're going to try and have like a family reunion at some point at the gallery, and everyone's invited. And to meet this lady is a great thing. And then the granddaughter in North Carolina, and she's a writer, and she's old enough to have experienced him and been around him, and so she has great stories to tell. I'll just tell one quick side story. She has 2 grandkids, and so we were there visiting, and she goes, I have to go pick up my 2 grandkids. I went, okay, great. And each kid she has 2 daughters, and each has one of the kids. And one of the kids is Jack, and the other kid is Ruby. And I'm like going, and she's yelling, Jack, Ruby. And I'm like going, really? and she goes, yeah, not too many people get that. I said, when you have 2 more kids and they're Lee and Harvey, they'll know.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it was, and so the gallery, I should tell you this stuff, is located on Damon Avenue. It's 2124 North Damon. And you can either call me or look me up on Facebook. The gallery's got a page on Facebook. We also have a web page. And the best way to contact the internet is through the Vito Decline at AOL. And it's a double negative, but...
You're listening to Art on the Air, WVLP 103.1 FM, and on Lakeshore Public Radio 89.1 FM.
You know, it's going to be up until it opens May 22nd. We're going to do come as you want show, and I'm going to let 10 people in at a time and all that sort of stuff. But there's going to be plenty of time to see the show. It's going to be up until August 14th. I'm there Monday through Saturday, 10 to 4, and you can call and make an appointment for the evening. As long as Wrigley and Symphony aren't up, so I don't think they're going to be there.
So, Stan, is your daughter still in the arts?
Yes. She got a writing, English, and art history degree and a master's from Bryn Mawr, and she works at University of Penn, and she works in the architectural and design department. And so very much in the arts. She has a band that travels around the country and all that sort of stuff.
What type of music?
She writes the songs. It's very lyrical, kind of, a little dark, I have to say, but very understandable. And she came to the show in New York. She came the day after the opening, which was great. So there's just the two of us in the gallery. And she looked around at my work, we were talking, and she was getting ready to do a tour across the country. And I said, Ivy, you see on the walls here, I never talk about you. You're never in any of my artwork. And she looked at me and she said, understood. So I don't want any songs about Dad.
So, at one point, Stan, you said the road is your home. Do you still feel that way?
Oh, yeah. I love driving on the road. And driving Tony, twice across the country, once to Texas, driving to Florida to pick up this artwork. And then when I was in Maine for the museum, I'd have to drive everywhere. I love it. And I have two rules. I never stay in a motel or hotel. I stay in Airbnbs or somebody I know or something like that. And I don't eat at franchise restaurants. And at breakfast, if the waitress serves me 3 cups of coffee without me asking, I have to propose to her.
So how many proposals have you made, Stan?
3.
All in different parts of the country?
Yeah. The last one was in Colorado, and she thought about it. I was with Steve at the time, and he looked at me. He looked at me going, she might say yes. You better be careful here.
Have you gotten a yes yet?
No.
Stan, something I'd like to ask you about is with the pandemic, COVID-19, how's that affected you and personally and, with your gallery? Of course, you've had probably no admissions and things, and then what do you look forward to after that's all passed?
I because of the way my gallery is, I want to give the artists as long a time to figure out what they want to do. So I'm booked for almost 2 years out all the time. And so I'm really working with those artists. And because of this, I had to cancel 2 shows and postpone them and add them on for a year and a half from now. And I think because of the way my gallery is, it fits dealing with this stuff. And it really makes the artist think about stuff more. How do I want to promote this and be part of it? And it's a good thing going forward, and I feel the need that there has to be. I'm not in an art community. I'm in a regular, everyday sort of hip, but still family neighborhood. And that's what I imagined galleries to be. You had a grocery store, you had a tool shop, you had this, you had that. Oh, there's a place I could go see some art for 10 minutes. And that's what I want. I want somebody to get a refresher for their eyes and minds for 10 minutes in the midst of their day and go, I saw something I'll never see again.
And that's what I did at the Art Institute, because back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it was accessible to pop in for 10 minutes and just experience something quickly and then go on. And it was like so influential for me and so fabulous to be able to do that. So it's wonderful.
Growing up in Cleveland, the Cleveland Museum, which just expanded, is still free. Parking is free. The museum is free. And they have this huge atrium that you can sit and have coffee and read the Sunday paper.
Yeah.
And I would go there after Hebrew school, read the paper, and just, you could take a break, walk into see that show, come back, have another cup of coffee, read the sports section, go to the next place in there. And it made the whole day.
The Art Institute used to be by donation, and you get that wonderful metal tab that you could put in your collar, and it made it accessible to go in and just pop in quickly and see your.
And you feel like you're not under demand to see something because I paid $20. I have to really see this. You know, it should be experienced. It shouldn't be a requirement. And that's kind of what I want people to feel like. They've just walked into something they didn't expect.
A little oasis for a few minutes.
Yeah. And look, that image may stick with me for the rest of the day. Sometime in the middle of the night, I'll wake up and go, wow, that was a weird thing I saw today.
And then I want to go back.
I want to go back. And I'll remember being there. And that's why I also, the artists that I work with, that I try and cultivate, are people with a pretty solid idea of what they're doing. You know, they may not be to that point of accomplishment of matching up expression and the visuals, but they have it in their head, and they're able to at least get most of it there. But they have a personal expression, and that's what I really seek. And then it's also a lot of mid-career artists who have done all the one-man shows and done all the group shows, and they're kind of like, what do I do next? And this gives them an opportunity to go, let me try this. I never tried this before. And there's no financial feeling of, I didn't sell anything and this guy gets 50%. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's free. You know, do it. Whatever you want to do it. You know, and make it so that you give it all the consideration. And, just don't sort of throw it together.
Stan,
let me see what you're really thinking.
Stan, I was going to ask you, where has outside of Firecat, where can your work be seen? Have you done things at galleries? I mean, I saw you had an exhibition in 2018 in New York, but are you exhibiting elsewhere?
I've shown a couple of places in New York. I'm showing at in Maine. I had a good relationship with a rather large gallery there, and he still shows my work. It's Jake Dowling, Dowling, and the gallery's Dowling Walsh, and they still exhibit my work there. And then John Malloy showed my work in New York City, and then a place in upstate New York that I like a lot. I like the people a lot. It's in Greenkill, and it's a really nice place, and it's like what Southwest Michigan is to Chicago. It's a lot of summer New Yorkers up there, and again, it fits me more because I'm not your monumental artist on the cutting edge. I'm not doing paintings, I'm doing drawings. It's accessible. I want people to sort of casually walk into it and be surprised rather than build up expectations of my life is going to change.
Stan, we're about ready to wrap it up, but give us some of your final thoughts before we do that about the current exhibit.
Yeah, Jon Gnagy, important in a lot of ways because he is the essence of why we do what we do.
We wouldn't have Bob Ross without him.
Yeah, and that was the other thing the granddaughter said to me. It was like, I tell some of the people there, and my grandfather was a TV artist. They go, Bob Ross. I go, no, not him. But she has a letter from Bob Ross to her granddad saying, thank you, and that's why we do it, though. That love of image making, expression, and being able to share it and be able to talk about it and have a conversation about it. These are the things we're sort of missing in this sort of impersonal internet world. And here he was able to break through that on TV. And that, in some ways, he's giving me a hand up now on how do I talk to people on the internet about art. And it's one of those things that we need to keep that interchange alive. And when Ken was telling me he grew up with art magazines and they were all black and white. He was in rural North Carolina. He didn't know what they looked like in color. And it just, we have to, that curiosity, that wanting to know, and yet being able to adapt and learn and express. Those are the important things that make art making really part of our essence.
Well, look at this. These were decades ago, these Jon Gnagy television things, and they're so accessible even now. I mean, he had such a pleasant way of teaching, and I'm enjoying drawing with him.
Well, part of the show, I'm going to have the TV shows going, and have paper and everything. If somebody brings in their kid, let's put the TV on. Let's see how they do.
Yeah.
And I want to do an artist challenge. And if an artist comes in and says, do you think you can do it? Yeah, I think I can. I'll put the plaid shirt on him and let's go. Let's see if he can do it.
Well, Stan, it's been a great time having you on the phone. That's Stan Klein, also known as Vito DeSalvo. And if you want to see the exhibit with Jon Gnagy, that's at the Firecat Projects, 2124 North Damon in Chicago. You can get a hold of him at firecatprojects.org. And it opens May 22nd and runs through August 15th. And there's a special family opening on May 23rd. Stan, thank you so much for being part of our show.
Yeah,
thank you so much. Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. You guys have been great.
And we'd like to thank our guest today for being on Art on the Air, which is heard every Friday at 11 a.m., rebroadcast Monday at 5 p.m., and Sunday at 7 p.m. on Lakeshore Public Radio 89.1 FM. Your hosts are Larry Brechner and Ester Golden. Thanks again to Greg Kovach, WVLP's station manager. Underwriters for Art on the Air are Valparaiso University's Brower Museum and Walt Breininger of Paragon Investments. Also, Mary Levan is our art patron supporter. Art on the Air is supported by the Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Grant and the National Endowment for the Arts. If you're interested in being a guest or send us information about your arts-related event, exhibit, please email us at artontheair.wvlp@gmail.com. That's artontheair.wvlp@gmail.com. See you right here next week, 103.1 FM and 89.1 FM, Art on the Air.
Aloha, everyone. Have a splendid week.
Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. You're in the know with Ester and Larry. Art on the air today. Stay in the know with Larry and Ester. Art on the air our way. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world